Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuhu. I am Janima El Mohamed Naim, and for today's video, ang pag-uusapan naman po natin ay ang SMEs liabilities, particularly provisions and contingencies, leases, employee benefits, and income taxes. And as you can see on the screen po, itong mga pag-uusapan natin ay familiar na dahil natakal na natin to sa IA1 and IA2. Pero this time around po, ang ifo-focus natin is that paano po nire-recognize or mini-measure ng mga SMEs ang mga liabilities na ito. So, before I start, kailangan i-emphasize natin ngayon pa lang na yung PVRS po na nakasanayan natin ay iba po sa pag-uusapan natin ngayon na PVRS for SMEs. Kaya, yung topic natin ngayon ay iikot po siya sa pagko-compare natin sa PVRS at sa PVRS for SMEs. So, let's start, Provision. Okay, yung provision, a provision is a liability of uncertain timing or amount. And ang sabi natin, magre-recognize po tayo ng provision kapag na-meet itong 3 requirements, which I believe na very, very familiar na kayo dito. Number 1 is that the entity has a present obligation as a result of past event. Number 2, there is a probable outflow of resources ng isang entity para ma-settle niya yung kanyang liability. Again probable po dapat yung pag-outflow ng resources. Number 3, kailangan po ay ma-measured, reliably yung provision. Contingent liability, Very familiar na din, hindi po ba? Now, ang contingent liability, it is either a possible but uncertain obligation. Possible siya pero hindi pa sigurado. Or pwede rin po na ang contingent liability, it is actually a present liability that is not recognized because it cannot be measured reliably or hindi probable yung pag-outflow ng resources. Okay? So again, ang contingent liability ay hindi siya probable but possible lang siya. Okay? Or pwede namang probable siya pero it cannot be measured reliably. In simple terms, hindi niya na-meet yung 3 requirements para mag-recognize ang isang entity ng provision. So, anong treatment sa contingent liability? Ang treatment po natin dyan ay disclosure lamang. So, kung isa-summarize po natin, kapag probable ang outflow, i-recognize natin yung provision. Kapag possible, ay disclosure lamang po. Kapag remote, ay hindi na po kailangan ng disclosure. The next one ay contingent asset. Ano naman tong contingent asset? It is a possible asset that arises from the past event and whose existence will be confirmed only by the occurrence or non-occurrence of one or more certain events. Now, ano naman ang treatment natin sa contingent asset? Ang contingent asset po, kapag probable po ang inflow ng resource po, ay i-disclose natin siya, So, kung titignan natin sa contingent liability, kapag probable, recognize. Kapag possible, disclose. Dito sa contingent asset, kapag probable siya, ay i-disclose lang natin siya. Okay? So, i-compare na natin yung PVRS for SMEs and then yung full PVRS. Actually, when it comes to provision and contingencies, ay wala pong pinagkaiba itong dalawa. Same lang po sila ng principle na ginagamit or same lang yung pag-recognize po nila doon sa provision and contingencies. Okay, lease, When you say lease po, it is actually defined by the PVRS for SME in which po si lessor ay bibigyan niya ng right of use of an asset in exchange for payments or series of payments po sa certain period of time or yung tinatawag nating lease term. And lahat po ng, actually yung PVRS for SMEs is applicable siya, sa lahat ng lease except for the following na babanggitin natin. Okay. Number one exception na hindi under po sa PFRS SMEs, no? Yung lease in the exploration industry. Katulad example natin yung sa oil, sa petroleum, sa minerals. Number two is yung licensing agreement sa mga movies, sa books, sa patent, or sa copyrights. Number three, yung investment property. Number four, yung biological asset. Number five naman po is kung is a simple term lang natin is ito actually yung mga lease na mayroong kasama, no, dun sa contract na condition na masyadong risky. At yung condition na yon na sinasabi nating risky ay hindi naman connected mismo doon sa asset na nererentahan mo. Ano pong example niyan? For example, si SMEs, no, nag-rent siya ng truck. And then itong si lessor, nilagay niya sa contract of lease nila na tataas yung babayaran ni lessee ng kapag tumaas ang exchange rate ng US dollar, no? Kung titignan natin yung US dollar exchange rate ay wala naman connected doon sa truck mismo at yung condition itself is masyado siyang risky on the part of the lessee. Kaya nga yung mga ganyang klaseng lease, no, ay hindi po yan under sa PFRS for SMEs. Now, the last one is tinatawag natin na onerous operating lease. Ano naman po itong onerous operating lease? Now, when you say onerous operating lease, from the word itself na onerous, isa lang yung nakikinabang, while yung isa is at disadvantage. Anong example yan? Masyadong mataas ang binabayaran mo kaysa sa benefit na nakukuha mo. So that kind of lease ay hindi rin po under sa PFRS for SMEs. So let's proceed with classification of lease, no? So we are all familiar na ang classification ng lease, it's either finance lease or operating lease. Now, when we say operating lease, ito po yung normal, no, na alam natin na rent to rent lang. Kumbaga na rent lang. However, when we say finance lease, is dito na papasok yung tinatawag natin na transfer of risk and reward. In which, no, si lessee at the end of the lease term ay meron siyang option kung bibilihin ba niya yung asset na yon or hindi. Actually, ang pinaka good example of this is yung rent to own, di ba? Nagre-rent siya pero at the end of the lease term ay kay lessee na yung asset. So, comparison of PFRS for SMEs sa full PFRS po is when it comes to lesser accounting ay wala pong pinagkaiba. Same lang po sila. Pero dito na po papasok yung problema sa lessee accounting. Bakit po? Kasi dito actually mayroong pinagkaiba. Now, sa lessee accounting kasi is yung pag-recognize po ay nakadepende kay lessee, no? Kung sa tingin ba niya ay there is a transfer of risk and reward, then of course i-recognize niya yung lease as finance lease. On the other hand, kapag walang transfer of risk of reward ay operating lease na siya. Yun dati. Pero ngayon, meron na kasi tayong tinatawag na PFRS 16 or yung new standard in which hindi na po applicable yung transfer of risk and reward. Kumbaga, wala nang choice si lessee. So, anong kailangan ni lessee? Si lessee, the moment na mag-rent siya, kailangan niya mag-recognize ng lease liability at yung tinatawag natin na ROA na right of use of an asset. Now, going back sa ating IE2, how do we compute the lease liability? Diba, the lease liability can be actually computed by getting the present value ng mga future payments mo. For example, 100,000 every year ang babayaran mo. Now, you get the present value of that 100 years sa year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. Now, alam natin na hindi lang yun kasi kailangan din natin i-add dyan yung mga prepayments, no? Yung mga advance payment, yung initial direct cost, or kung may lease incentive man tayo na kunwari sa first 2 months binigay sa atin ni lessor yun na libre, i-minus natin yun. And the last one is yung restoration or yung dismantling na kailangan naka-present value din. Okay? And then yung right of use of an asset, hindi po ba dinidepreciate natin yan saan? Sa lease term o sa useful life? Sa lease term kasi tayo si lessee. Yung useful life is kay lessor yun. Okay? Now, mayroon exception dito sa PVRS 16. Ano yung exception dito? Kasi kung titignan natin, no, parang yung PVRS 16, parang nagre-recognize din tayo under finance list. And then that, mayroon exception actually dun sa PVRS 16 in which pwede daw sila i-recognize yung lease as an operating list kapag yung nare-rentahan niyang asset is low value or kapag yung lease term po is 12 months and below. Okay? Now, let's proceed with employee benefit. Now, actually, PVRS for SMEs at saka yung full PVRS share the same principles, no, in recognizing and measuring the short-term benefit plans, no, long-term benefit plans, contribution plans, and termination plans, no. Parehas sila. Now, number one na pagkakaparehas nila is that yung past service cost po na tinatawag po natin ay immediately nare-recognize yan as expense regardless po sa vesting. Number 2 naman po is yung gray measurement of benefit plan is under po sa full PVRS is minimeasured po natin yan. Nare-recognize po natin yan under OCI. Hindi po ba, yun yung tinatawag po natin na actuarial gain or loss sa remeasurement ng benefit plan. Pero under po kay PVRS for SMEs is mayroong choice si SMEs. Pwede niyang i-recognize yung benefit remeasurement ng benefit plan na yon sa PNL or sa OCI. Okay, sa full PVRS, wala silang choice kundi sa OCI lang. Sa PVRS for SMEs, pwedeng sa PNL or pwedeng sa OCI. Now, the third one is that yung projected unit credit method. Now, under the full PVRS, kailangan po nila itong gamitin sa pag-measured ng defined benefit liability. Pero under PVRS 8 ay mayroong pwede po itong hindi gamitin ng mga SMEs kapag po nakita nila na masyadong mahal or nagre-require ito ng malaking effort. Now, the fourth one is that dito parehas na si PVRS at saka si full PVRS ng defined benefit liability. Kailangan po kasi is yung defined benefit liability is naka-net po yan. So, how do we compute for defined benefit liability? First is you get the present value of the benefit obligation at the year end, and then saka mo po ima-minus yung fair value ng planned asset at the year end. Okay, number 5 naman is, diba, sabi natin fair value of the planned asset. Okay, any changes, no, doon sa fair value of the planned asset, no, under PVRS for SMEs is nare-recognize po yun lahat sa PNL. Again, lahat ng changes doon sa planned asset ay nare-recognize natin sa PNL under PVRS for SMEs. Now, sa full PVRS ay hindi po ganun. Now, this is how we recognize it. No? Yung interest income po doon sa planned asset is recognized as part of the employee benefit expense. No? Isasama natin yung interest income ng fair value ng planned asset as part of the employee benefit expenses. And then yung difference ng actuarial gain at saka interest income ng planned asset naman po is nare-recognize natin yan as remeasurement of the planned asset through OCI. Okay? I hope that's clear. Okay, so let's proceed naman sa current tax asset and current tax liability. Again, kailan nangyari yung current tax liability? For example, ang yung tax payable lamang for this year ay 10,000. But the thing is, ang binayaran mo lang is 8,000. So, yung 2,000 na kulang po doon is yun yung tinatawag natin na current tax liability. Utang mo yun ngayon, currently, kasi payable siya ngayon. And dapat i-recognize mo yun. Now, on the other hand, ang current tax asset naman is, for example, is 20,000 ang yung tax payable. Pero ang binayaran mo is 30,000. So, therefore, meron kang sobrang 10,000. So, yan yung tinatawag natin current tax asset. And actually, itong current tax asset, ang other term po natin dyan is prepaid income tax dahil po makukuha mo naman yun next taxable year. Okay? So, yung measurement of the current tax asset and current tax liabilities is ang gagamitin po nating rate dyan is kung ano po yung enacted rate during the taxable year. So, kung ano yung effective na rate ng taxable year na yun, then yun po yung gagamitin nating rate. So, the last one po is yung tinatawag po natin na deferred tax asset and deferred tax liability. Now, kung ang current tax asset and current tax liability is yun yung tax on the current period, ito naman pong dalawa na DTA and DTL po, these are the taxes on the future. Now, bakit ba nagkakaroon ng ganito? It is actually dahil sa timing difference ni accounting at saka ni taxation. And then, alam naman natin na bukod sa timing difference is ang accounting po ay based on accrual basis, hindi po ba? And yung tax naman is based on the cash basis. Now, unahin muna natin yung deferred tax asset. When you say deferred tax asset is mataas yung binayaran mong tax ngayon, pero on the future naman is mas mababa na siya dahil nga mayroon kang DTA. A good example of that is, for example, no, si customer, no, nag-advance payment siya sa'yo. Now, sabi natin yung advance payment na yon under accounting, no, we do not recognize that as income kasi unearned pa yon. Actually, liability natin yon. Pero under sa tax po is dahil natanggap mo yung perang yon, that is taxable already. Okay? And then, therefore, no, mataas yung binayaran mong tax ngayon, pero on the future is bababa naman siya. On the other hand naman is yung DTL or deferred tax liability. Ito is mababa yung pinakita mong expenses ngayon, no? Kaya mababa yung babayaran mong tax, pero on the future is mas tataas lang din naman yung babayaran mong tax. A good example of that is yung depreciation. Okay, lastly, no, ang deferred tax asset and deferred tax liability, ang sabi natin, these are all future taxes. Therefore, ang gagamitin nating rate para i-compute to ay yung future rate din po. Okay? And then, we have also to take note that deferred tax liability is non-current liability regardless po sa reversal niyan. And then, ganun din po, sa DTA naman is consider po siya na non-current asset regardless din po sa reversal niyan.
After learning and knowing the concept behind the standards for liabilities for SMEs, now I'll be showing you and explaining to you sample problems that will help you deepen your understanding and to apply the concepts that you have learned. Now, for the first problem, it is related to leases. It is stated in the problem that an SME corporation entered into a 5-year operating lease with lessor incorporation. The annual lease payment is 360,000. However, subsequent lease payment shall be increased taking into consideration the effect of general inflation. The consensus forecast by local banks is that general price level index as published by the government will increase by an average of 10% annually over the next 5 years. So the question for this problem is how much is the rental expense recognized by SME Corporation in the second year of the lease, and also how much is the rent income recognized by Lessor Incorporation in the third year of the lease. Now, to solve for number 1, which is the rental expense to be recognized by SME Corporation in the second year. So the problem is asking for the second year of the lease. So the first year, it is already recognized that the annual lease expense or annual lease income is the 360,000, which is the annual lease payments. Now, to solve for the second year or to know the annual lease expense and annual lease income for the second year, since we have already said that we have to take consideration of the general inflation, which is 10%, then we multiply 360,000 to 1.10 and we get the answer for second year, which is 396,000. So this 396,000 is the rent expense that will be recognized by SME Corporation in the second year of the lease. Now the answer is C, 396,000. For the next question, which is how much is the rental income to be recognized by Lessor Incorporation in the third year of the lease, Then to answer this, under the operating lease, the lessor should recognize rent income on a straight line basis unless there is another systematic basis to represent it, and the effect of you have to take consideration of the effect of general inflation. So the same with lessee, that you have to take consideration of the 10% general inflation. Now to answer this, since we already get the for a second year annual lease or an annual lease expense or annual lease income, then for the third year, this 396,000 annual lease expense or annual lease income in the second year, we multiply it to 1.10 since we are taking consideration the general inflation, multiplying it to 396,000, and we get the 435,600 for the third year rent income to be recognized by lessor incorporation. Now, the answer for question number 2 is C, 435,600. Now, for the next problem is related to provisions. Now, the problem states that an SME provides 1-year warranty for the product it sells. During the period, the SME made total sales of 5,000 units. It was estimated that 80% of the units sold may not have any defects, 12% may have minor defects, and 8% may have major defects. A major defect requires repair cost of 100, while a minor defect requires repair cost of 20. Actual repair cost incurred for defective units sold during the year amounted to 10,000. Now, the question is how much warranty provision is recognized at year-end, and also how much is the warranty expense for the period. Now, to solve this problem, under the rule of provision, an SME shall measure a provision at the best estimate of the amount required to settle the obligation at the reporting date. That is, if there is an available of best estimate. But since in this problem, it involves large population of items. So under the rule in the provision is that when involves a large population of items, the estimate of the amount should reflect the weighting of all possible outcomes by their associated probabilities. Now, we know that the units sold is 5,000. So it is mentioned in this problem that 5,000 of these units sold, or 80% of these units sold, may not have any defects. So we ignore that since there are no provision or there is no problem for that. And for the next one, which is 12%, may have minor defects. So we multiply this 12% to 5,000 units sold and multiply it to the repair cost of 20 pesos, and we get the total of 12,000 for minor defects. Now, for major defects, 8% of the units sold may have major defects. So we multiply 88% to 5,000 and multiply it to repair cost, which is 100, and we get 40,000, and we add the major and the minor defects, 42,000 and 12,000, and we get 52,000. Now this 52,000 is the warranty expense for the period. So since it is mentioned also in this problem that the actual repair cost incurred for the defective units sold during the year amounted to 10,000, we deduct this for 10,000 to 52,000, and we get 42,000. And this 42,000 is the warranty provision that is recognized at year end. So this solved the question number 1, which is the letter A, 42,000, the warranty provision recognized at year end. Now, for the question number 2, the warranty expense which we have already calculated is 52,000, letter B.